Hello and welcome to the Travel Tree YouTube channel. If you're new here, don't forget to hit the subscribe and like buttons to stay updated on our latest videos. Today, we're tackling a question many people ask: can I sponsor my spouse or partner to Canada? Or am I eligible to sponsor my spouse or partner for Canadian immigration? Spousal sponsorship to Canada is a popular route for couples who want to start a new life together. However, the process can be quite complex, and many are unsure about how to begin. In this video, we will break down everything you need to know about Canadian spousal sponsorship, including who is eligible to sponsor, who is not, and the requirements for the sponsored partner. So, stick with us until the end to fully understand the process. Let's get started. What is spousal sponsorship? Canadian citizens and permanent residents have the opportunity to sponsor their spouse, common-law partner, or conjugal partner for permanent residence, PR, in Canada. While this may seem like a straightforward process, there are several factors that can make the sponsorship journey more complicated. Delays, refusals, and additional paperwork can arise at any stage. The first step in the sponsorship process is to determine if you, as the sponsor, are eligible. Additionally, you need to assess if your spouse or partner qualifies to be sponsored. The requirements can vary, but the good news is that we're here to walk you through the process step by step. This video is part of a series of 3, so if you're planning to sponsor your loved one, make sure to stay tuned for the upcoming parts. Determining eligibility to sponsor. Before you can begin the sponsorship application, it's essential to ensure that you meet the eligibility criteria. As a sponsor, you must meet the following requirements. Age requirement: you must be at least 18 years old. Citizenship or residency: you need to be a Canadian citizen, permanent resident, or a registered Indian. Residency status: if you are living in Canada, you can sponsor your spouse or partner. If you are a Canadian citizen living outside of Canada, you must prove that you will return to Canada once your spouse or partner becomes a permanent resident. Financial support: you must be willing and able to financially support your spouse or partner for 3 years after they receive PR status. This includes providing for their basic needs like food, clothing, and shelter. No ineligibility issues: there are situations that could make you ineligible to sponsor. Let's go over those in a moment. Now, let's talk about the specific situation for those living in Quebec. If you live in Quebec and want to sponsor your spouse or partner, you must follow Quebec's unique immigration rules. In addition to the federal requirements, you'll need to sign a separate commitment with Quebec and have your income assessed by Quebec immigration authorities. Who is not eligible to sponsor? There are some important conditions under which you cannot sponsor your spouse or partner. These include: if you were sponsored by a spouse or common-law partner to gain permanent residency in the past 5 years, you are not eligible to sponsor someone else. If you signed a sponsorship agreement for a previous partner who has not yet become a permanent resident for over 3 years, you cannot sponsor again. If you still have financial obligations from a past sponsorship, e.g., ongoing commitments from a previous partner, you won't be eligible. If you owe money on an immigration loan, performance bond, or court-ordered family support payments. If you failed to meet the financial support commitments in a past sponsorship application. If you declared bankruptcy and have not yet been discharged. If you are receiving social assistance, except due to disability. If you have a criminal conviction, particularly for violent crimes or offenses involving harm to a family member. If you are in prison. If you've already applied to sponsor your current spouse and are waiting for a decision. If you are under a removal order and cannot legally stay in Canada. As mentioned before, these rules do not apply to sponsors living in Quebec. The sponsored partner. Now, let's take a look at the criteria for the partner who is being sponsored. To be eligible for sponsorship, the partner must. Age requirement: they must be at least 18 years old. Qualifying relationship: the person being sponsored must be in a qualifying relationship with the sponsor. There are 3 types of relationships. Spouse, legally married to the sponsor. Common law partner, has lived together in a conjugal relationship for at least 1 year. Conjugal partner, has been in a relationship for at least 1 year but lives in different countries due to circumstances beyond their control, like immigration barriers or legal issues. For a marriage to be recognized, it must be legally valid both in the country where it took place and in Canada. Both partners should have attended the ceremony. For common-law partners, they must demonstrate a committed relationship by showing that they've lived together for at least 1 year, supported each other financially, emotionally, and publicly, and may even have children together to prove their commitment. For conjugal partners, they must show they've been in a strong relationship but have faced challenges preventing them from living together or marrying, such as legal, cultural, or immigration barriers. Additional requirements for the sponsored partner. The sponsored partner must also meet the requirement of being admissible to Canada. This means there should be no legal issues that would prevent them from entering the country. If the partner is already in Canada, they must have a valid temporary resident status, such as a visitor, work, or study permit, unless they're exempt from this requirement due to special public policy. Finally, the sponsored partner must ensure they have all the necessary documents when granted permanent resident status. What does permanent residence mean? Let's move on to a very important concept, permanent residency. A permanent resident is someone who has been authorized to live in Canada indefinitely while still being a citizen of another country. Permanent residents enjoy many of the rights and privileges that Canadian citizens do, but there are some key differences. Rights and privileges for permanent residents. As a permanent resident, you have the right to access most social benefits, such as healthcare and education. Live, work, and study anywhere in Canada. Apply for Canadian citizenship after fulfilling the residency requirements. Enjoy protection under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. However, there are some restrictions. Permanent residents cannot vote in federal or provincial elections. Access certain high-security government jobs that require Canadian citizenship. If a permanent resident becomes a Canadian citizen, they gain all the rights of a natural-born Canadian citizen. Becoming a Canadian citizen. Now, let's talk about the next step, transitioning from permanent residence to Canadian citizenship. To become a Canadian citizen, a permanent resident must live in Canada for at least 3 out of the last 5 years. File taxes for the relevant years. Pass a test about Canadian culture, rights, and responsibilities. Demonstrate proficiency in either English or French. Take the oath of citizenship. This process can take time, but once completed, the individual will enjoy the full rights of a Canadian citizen. Just to summarize, sponsoring your spouse or partner to Canada involves several important steps. Understanding the eligibility requirements for both sponsors and sponsored partners is crucial. With the right preparation and knowledge, you can navigate the sponsorship process successfully and start your life together in Canada. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video if you found it helpful. Stay tuned for more in-depth videos in this series. See you in the next one.